My name's Angelo, and welcome to We Want Picks. I'm going to break down the entire UFC 276 fight card, give you my picks and our DraftKings plays, who's worth the money, who's not worth the money, who should be in your lineup, and who you should leave out. Weigh-ins are over. It was the most uneventful weigh-in we have had in a long time, and that's a good thing. No fights were canceled. Nobody looked bad. Nobody missed weight. It went exactly as expected. Everybody made weight. Everybody looked good. No issues. So that does not affect the analysis here whatsoever. So this is essentially the same analysis that we brought to you earlier in the week because nothing's changed that. But before we jump into the analysis, before we talk about the fighters, who's worth the money, who's not worth the money, and who should be in your lineup, check out wewantpicks.com/DraftKings. We have a free DraftKings league. You can join. You can play against us, the rest of the community, try to earn some bucks with some other contests in there as well. And join our free Discord. It costs nothing. We do not charge for the Discord. Hop in, join the free Discord, share your ideas. People will share theirs, give each other lineups and ownership projections and all that. So check all that out, and let's jump into this breakdown. Opening up the card, we got Jessica Rose Clark taking on Julia Stolarienko. I love Jessica Rose Clark in this spot. It's an interesting fight, right? Because Jessica Rose Clark's a slick striker. She is coming off a grappling loss, but she's a good striker, and she could work in some takedowns if she needs to. We can see that here. She had 5 against Edwards. She took down Alpar. She took down Edgar in that fight, which ended up being a mistake, obviously. She's fighting Julia Stolarienko, and Julia Stolarienko is a very good grappler and a miserable wrestler. And in order to win this fight, she's going to need to get it to the ground, but she doesn't have the wrestling to get it there, so how is it going to get there? I have to imagine Jessica Rose Clark is going to be doing well enough in her feet that she doesn't need to work in a takedown. So I love Jessica Rose Clark to win this fight, and $8,600 I think is a fantastic price point. So she will probably be in my lineup. Then we got Brad Tavares taking on Dricus du Plessis. Tricky fight. Really tricky fight. The odds makers have Brad as a tiny favorite. Dricus is a phenomenal striker. He has a 100% finish rate. He has won every single one of his fights by finish. He's very explosive. He can really grapple as well. Brad Tavares, this guy is a tried and true entity. He's pretty decent everywhere, but for the most part, he is a striker. And let's look at his losses. Shabazian, that's a good loss. Adesanya, that's a good loss. And Robert Whittaker, that's a good loss. So he's really only losing to some of the best people on the planet, and he's losing to them while they're in their prime. The problem with Brad Tavares, he's not very active. So he did fight twice in 2021, but once in 2019, twice in 18, twice in 17. And that it's just not enough for somebody like him. He hasn't fought in a full year. He did look decent against Akhmedov. Carlos Jr. was an interesting fight. He's got a 79% takedown defense, but I don't think that matters. I really don't think that matters. And let's look at Dricus. He's only got 2 fights in the UFC, and like I said, he's 100% finish rate. I do think Dricus wins this fight. And honestly, I will probably have him in my DraftKings lineup, but it's so tricky because this is a razor-thin fight. Brad is so experienced, he could bring that experience into the cage, slow down Dricus, avoid the power. And I have no idea what Dricus is going to look like in the 3rd round. Can he win a decision? I don't know. He never has before, so we don't know. I will probably go with Dricus, but I think you need to have either one of these guys in your lineup because they're so affordable. They're both so good, and there's clear paths to victory. But Dricus du Plessis, 100% finish rate, $8,000. If that continues, a deal of a lifetime, right? Then we've got Jessica I taking on MAYCEE Barber. MAYCEE Barber's $9,100. She's a favorite here. She should be a favorite. Very good kickboxer, or very boxing for the most part. Her wrestling's improving. She actually took down Montana De La Rosa here. Took down Grasso 3 times. That was a loss. The Roxanne Modafferi loss, I mean, that one was like, that destroyed her mentally. And this Miranda Maverick win wasn't a win. She lost that fight. They gave her a gift of a decision. Either way, she looked fantastic against Montana De La Rosa. Looked absolutely fantastic. But she only scored 80 points, not even, 79 points. And she's fighting Jessica I. And here's the thing. Look at this is miserable, right? A bunch of L's. But lost to Jennifer Maia, Joanne Wood, Cynthia Calvillo, Shevchenko. She's losing to women that are currently ranked or have been ranked in the top 10. She's a tried and true vet, just like we broke down Brad Tavares. Brad's a little better than Jessica Ai, but she's a tried and true vet. She's been everywhere, done everything, fought everyone. I do think MAYCEE wins this fight, but I don't know if she's putting Jessica Ai out. Who put Jessica Ai out? Shevchenko? Who else? I mean, look at this. Shevchenko. That's it. So is MAYCEE Barber going to do it? No, probably not. So is MAYCEE Barber worth $9,100? No, she's not. So I'm not going to have MAYCEE Barber in my lineup. Then we have a really interesting fight. Andre Muniz taking on Uriah Hall. Andre Muniz, $9,200 because he's a nasty grappler. Insane grappler. This win over Jacare Souza, dude broke his arm. Jacare Souza, one of the best grapplers to ever go to MMA. Andre Muniz broke his arm, right? Andre Muniz is a grappling killer. He's got some decent stand-up, though. He's got good entries. He'll throw big power. He'll close that gap. He's fighting Uriah Hall. This card is loaded with aging vets that are still pretty good and can still win. So we just talked about Jessica Ai. We talked about Brad Tavares. Uriah Hall is another one. He's not that old, but he's been around for a while. He's been in there with some of the best. He's looked amazing. He's looked horrible. He's a bit inconsistent, but he was coming into this last fight with Sean Strickland, a 5-fight win streak. He did lose that Sean Strickland fight. He was taken down a bunch. Nobody saw that coming. So Andre Muniz, a big-time favorite, can win with grappling. He can submit anybody in the world. And I know the odds makers and everybody else is saying, well, Sean Strickland just took Uriah Hall down, what was it, 4 times, 5 times, something crazy, 3 times, I forget what it was. But nobody else has ever done that to Uriah Hall. And if you look at his last 16 fights, he didn't give up that many takedowns. So I think it's not that Uriah Hall's takedown defense sucks. It's 65%. I think it was more, he was not expecting Sean Strickland to take him down. He's fighting Andre Muniz. He is training his takedown defense like crazy, I assume. So, listen, Uriah Hall is very inconsistent and he's a little gun-shy. If I knew he was going to come forward and throw bombs and be creative with his striking and make it happen, he'd be my pick at the snap of a finger. But, I don't necessarily trust him to have that volume. He can be a low-volume guy. He can be too patient at times. So I do think Andre Muniz wins this fight. Is he going to submit Uriah Hall? Well, he needs to be worth that money, right? To be worth $9,200, you need a submission. And Uriah Hall has never been submitted, but neither did Jacare Souza. So you guys make that call. I don't know if I'm going to have Muniz in my lineup. Uriah Hall is still very good, very talented. He's probably one of the livest underdogs on this card. So super tricky. I don't know what I'm going to do there. Jim Miller versus Donald Cerrone. This is last minute. Jim Miller was supposed to fight Bobby Green. Bobby Green pulled out. Donald Cerrone said, I'll do it. Donald Cerrone, as you know, made 155 pounds a week ago or 2 weeks ago. A couple weeks before that, he made it. He was supposed to be coming back, 155, trying to put things together. I changed my life. I changed my camp, all of these things. But he still stepped up on short notice to fight Jim Miller. And Jim Miller, he has a million records in the UFC, most amount of wins, longevity, submit. It's insane. So does Cowboy Cerrone. So we get 2 aging vets. I loved Donald Cerrone when he was fighting Joe Lozon. I thought Donald Cerrone beat the piss out of him. And frankly, if I didn't see these 2 wins from Jim Miller, the Mata and the Gonzalez wins, the Eric Gonzalez and the Mata win, I would have assumed that Donald Cerrone would beat the piss out of Jim Miller too. He already has. This is a rematch. But these 2 wins were incredible. These were knockouts. Knockouts from a 39-year-old that didn't knock anybody out before. All of a sudden, he's found his power. And these were young prospects. Nicholas Mata was supposed to be a very good striker, and Jim Miller knocked him out. Only 1 takedown in these 2 fights. So I think I'm leaning Jim Miller here. $8,700 is a lot of money to spend because Donald Cerrone is still Donald Cerrone. Donald Cerrone is the better, more accomplished fighter, but he is aging, and all of a sudden, Jim Miller seemed to find some youth. I mean, poor Donald. Alex Morono lit him up, but short notice. Donald wasn't short notice, but Morono was, I believe. Nico Price, that was a draw. That was kind of a mess. Pettis beat him. McGregor, we remember the shoulders. Justin Gaethje, Tony Ferguson. And these are good losses. This is not, listen, okay, Conor McGregor, Justin Gaethje, Tony Ferguson before Tony Ferguson was a meth. Anthony Pettis, that was probably a surprising one. But, these are good losses. They're not the worst losses in a row. But he hasn't won a fight. 6 fights, he doesn't have a win. But look at who he did beat. Al Iaquinta, Alex Hernandez, Mike Perry. He beat he lost to Robbie Lawler. He beat a few former champions. Let's keep going. Where are they? Benson Henderson. That was an amazing fight. This is the Jim Miller win. Barboza. He's beaten some of the best people to ever do it. But I don't know. Is he going to put it together? Charles Oliveira, current champion. Donald Cerrone beat him. Is he going to be able to put it together and really showcase what he's been saying? I changed my life. I changed my camp. I've changed everything. I need my son to see me win. I don't know. I don't know. This is another really tough fight. I think Jim Miller wins, but I'm literally basing that off his last 2 fights where he's knocking out these young prospects. But we'll see. If this was the scheduled fight and Donald Cerrone had a camp and all of that, I'd pick Donald Cerrone. It is short notice. I get it. He just made weight. He should be in shape. But he made weight twice in the last... This will be the 3rd time in like 6 weeks. That messes with your body. It messes with your head. It's not like he jumped back into training. He made weight, was supposed to fight that day. The fight was canceled, so I'm sure he had some drinks, was hanging out for a week. And then they said, oh, let's do it again. Made weight, canceled that day, had some drinks, hanging out. Hey, next weekend you want to fight? So it's kind of a whirlwind. Jim Miller has been training. He's ready to go. And he was training for Bobby Green, who's a very good striker, just like Donald Cerrone. So I think Jim Miller wins. But $8,700, that's another really tricky price point. Then we got Ian Gary taking on Gabe Green. Ian Gary, the UFC wants this dude to be a star very bad. They really, really want him to be a star. And he can be. Good-looking dude, great hands, super fast, has real power. The problem is, if you go watch this fight, his UFC debut, man, did he get hit. He is a hittable guy, a very hittable guy. And Gabe Green is a pretty big athletic dude, and Gabe Green is a grappler, but he's got some power in his hands, and he can strike. So Ian Gary's got to be careful in this fight. $8,800. Listen, he does have insane power. Gabe Green is incredibly athletic. Gabe Green was able to do some awesome come-from-behind stuff in this fight against Johan Lioness. He was losing that fight, and then was able to pull it off. I think Ian Gary wins. Frankly, if he does win, he will probably win by KO or TKO. He's got insane power in his hands, but he's got to be careful with Gabe Green. Like I said, very athletic wrestler, or very athletic grappler, real power in his hands. He is coming off this win over Johan, but again, he was losing that fight. He was taken down twice. He was knocked down in that fight. And if Johan Lioness is knocking you down, he's a good striker, but Ian Gary probably be able to put you out. So I like Ian Gary. He potentially will be in my lineup. $8,800. I love that he's not at the $9,000 price point. Robbie Lawler, Bryan Barberena. You guys all know who Robbie Lawler is. Former champion. Another guy that has been in wars. He's fought everybody there has ever been to fight. He's won most of those fights. And yes, he was on a losing skid here. He lost to Rafael Dos Anjos, Ben Askren. Remember that fight, the Bulldog choke? After he slammed Ben. I mean, the Ben Askren fight was incredible. Colby Covington out-wrestled. Neil Magny, fine. Like, these are tough fights, and that's why everybody just looks at, you're 1-5 in your last 6. But you got to look a little closer. Look at the fights. Watch the fights. What was the level of competition? And he beat Nick Diaz, but that was Nick Diaz on a 5-year layoff. That was Nick Diaz who quit. Because Nick Diaz was landing successfully and then just quit. He folded. So, listen, I love Robbie Lawler. Giant fan of Robbie Lawler, but he is fighting Bryan Barberena. And Bryan Barberena is not a killer. He's not one of these guys that's just like murderer's row of power and athleticism. But let's focus on the strike numbers. 186 landed strikes against Matt Brown. 134 against Darian Weeks. 114 against Witt. 175 against Ivy. I mean, it's insane. 122. 195 against Luque. This fight didn't even go to the scorecards. Almost 200 strikes in a fight that didn't even finish. So, and I think that's the difference here. I think Bryan Barberena comes forward, lands with this amount of volume, and makes it happen. I think he's just going to pour it on Robbie. Robbie's going to have that insane power. We have seen Bryan Barberena knocked out before, and that can happen again. But I think it's Bryan Barberena's time. I think he's going to get it done. I love Robbie Lawler. Frankly, I'll be rooting for Robbie Lawler, but I think Bryan Barberena at $7,700. I think there's a real shot he gets this done with insane volume and forward pressure. I mean, look at these numbers he's doing. Indecisions. 96, 79 indecisions. So $7,700, I think he is absolutely worth it, but it may look like a Brian Kelleher fight like last week. I thought Brian Kelleher would be live too, and that dude got just mauled. So we'll see, but I do think Barberena's volume will be the difference. Jalin Turner, Brad Riddell. Listen, Jalin Turner, he's a good boxer. He manages to come forward and take care of range at the same time. The guy's 6'3". You know I'm always on here talking about you can't just look at topology, look at somebody's reach, and then make some ridiculous pick from there. But Jalin Turner does use his reach well. He uses his length really, really well. And look at the wins. This is what's great. 4 wins, 4 stoppages, 2 submissions, 2 knockouts. He's got takedowns in all of them. He has 3 knockdowns in those fights. He's very well-rounded. He's the real deal. He lost to Matt Frevola, Luque. These are good losses, and I get it. He's fighting Brad Riddell. Brad Riddell, former Muay Thai coach at Tiger Muay Thai. Brad Riddell, phenomenal striker. Brad Riddell, who took down Drew Dober 5 times. So Brad Riddell with the self-awareness. And I totally get it. A lot of you have already been commenting, Brad Riddell's a lock, Brad Riddell's a lock, and he may look like a lock in that fight. He's a very talented guy, but I do think Jalin Turner gets this done. I just think it's a really fun matchup. Brad only has a 39% takedown accuracy. So yes, 5 takedowns against Drew Dober, but a lot of effort goes into those, and he doesn't always get them. Brad Riddell's going to be the more technically sound striker, but I think Jalin's length, his raw power, and look, these are decisions. He's not flatlining people where Jalin Turner is. I think Jalin finds the button, gets it done. I like Jalin Turner to win this fight. $8,400, he's probably worth it, right? Middle of the road price there. But all of you loving Brad Riddell, you should absolutely have him in your lineup then, because Brad Riddell, I mean, let's go back to him real quick. Look at these decision wins. 86, 104. This 60 kind of sucks. But, you know, he does do well in these decision wins because he gets the volume off and he works in some takedowns with some control time. But I like Jalin Turner in that matchup. Then the pay-per-view kicks off. I don't know if they're going to do the fight order because Miesha Tate dropped. But anyway, with Sean O'Malley versus Pedro MUNHOZ. Sean O'Malley, we know who he is. Laser pinpoint accuracy, really athletic, and somehow has an insane amount of power for a dude that's, you know, shaped like a pole. It's crazy. But he's getting it done. He's landing. I mean, look at this. Look at this. KO. These are all knockouts. The dude only has 2 decisions. Everything else is a knockout. And this Vera loss, which is aging well, you know, Chito Vera lit up his leg gave out, and that was the end of it. But, you know, Sean O'Malley is very talented. He's very good. And he's very vocal about, you're going to pay me to fight bums. I only want to fight bums. You don't pay me anymore to fight better people, so why would I want to fight better people? It's logical. But I love Pedro MUNHOZ. I love Pedro MUNHOZ. But look at this. Look what they're doing to this poor guy. He's 1-4 in his last 5. Look what they're doing to him. Dominic Cruz, former champion, future Hall of Famer. Jose Aldo, former champion, future Hall of Famer. Freaking Edgar. Frankie Edgar, former champion, future Hall of Famer. Aljamain Sterling, current champion. If he keeps going, future Hall of Famer. That's what they're giving this guy. He can't catch a break. The Jimmy Rivera, that was a nice win, the Rivera win. And it's a problem because I like Pedro MUNHOZ. He's probably going to lose this fight, his 3rd loss in a row. And he might get cut, which is absurd because the dude's like, let's say, number 10 in the planet, and they're just giving him 1 through 9 constantly. So I feel bad for the guy. I don't think he should have taken this fight. It is what it is. I do think Sean O'Malley wins. I think his accuracy is going to be the difference here. But I'm not putting Sean O'Malley in my lineup because look at Pedro MUNHOZ. He's not losing. He's not getting knocked out. Who's knocking this guy out? Nobody's knocking this guy out. I don't think Sean O'Malley's going to do it either. I do think Pedro could have some success with the leg kicks. You know, maybe in and out, stay super busy. But, you know, I think Sean O'Malley wins. I'm not spending $9,300. And it's not a knock against Sean O'Malley. It's just Pedro MUNHOZ is so tough that I don't think Sean O'Malley's going to get a stoppage. So I don't think he's going to be worth the $9,300. This fight is canceled. They are looking for an opponent for Miesha Tate, but we'll see what happens there. Alex Pereira, Sean Strickland. I'm more excited for this fight than any other fight in the card. Alex Pereira, world-class kickboxer, right? Everybody knows at this point he knocked out Israel Adesanya. He beat Izzy twice in kickboxing. One time, flatlined him, knocked him out cold. He's come to the UFC. He just beat Bruno Silva. That was a great fight. He beat Andreas Michailidis. He was taken down 2 times in both of these fights. So taken down 4 times total. And that was the big question. What happens if you take Alex Pereira down? Well, we know what happens. He stands back up. He gets back up. He gave up 4 takedowns, and it was like less than 3 minutes of control time. So he gets back up, insane power. He does trust his chin, though. Bruno Silva got to him. Like, Bruno Silva touched him up. He trusts his chin, but god damn does that guy have power, and he's a phenomenal striker. And he's fighting Sean Strickland. Sean Strickland doesn't rotate his hips. Everything, it's like rock'em sock'em robot type punching, but he also has power somehow, and it adds up, and he puts it together, and he's got insane volume, and he keeps coming, and he's got a very good chin. And now we know he's got some grappling. He took down Uriah Hall 4 times, and that's the big question here. Because if it's kickboxing match, if Sean Strickland's just going to fight him the same way that he fought Jotko, well, Alex Pereira's going to take his head off his body. How would he not? Sean Strickland's not a world-class kickboxer. Sean Strickland's a very good boxer in MMA. Alex Pereira would murder him in a straight kickboxing match. So the question is this going to be a kickboxing match? If so, Alex Pereira's the pick. No question about it. Or is this going to be a true MMA fight? And Sean Strickland's going to work in all the things. I still like Alex Pereira to win. Because while Sean Strickland does have some deceiving power and insane volume, I think the majority of this fight will be striking. And I think Alex Pereira wins those exchanges. And it's just that simple. And I mean, Zaleski knocked him out. I think Alex Pereira can knock him out, right? We've seen his insane power. We've seen what he's able to do and how athletic he is. So it is an MMA fight. Sean Strickland has 28 MMA fights. Alex Pereira has 6. So they are worlds apart as far as experience is concerned, and conventional wisdom would say, you got to go with the MMA fighter. But I think style-wise, Sean's going to want to kickbox. And if he does take some shots, we've seen Alex Pereira, even if you can take him down. I said he'd taken down 4 times. He defended 11. 15 shots were taken on him. Only 4 of them worked. So, you know, Pereira's takedown defense is solid. He's a massive human being. He gets up when he gets taken down. Insane power. Very good striker. He does trust his chin a little too much. And Sean Strickland, though, he has that deceiving overtime power, not the one-punch put-out power. So, should be an interesting fight. Then we have the co-main event. Volkanovski taking on Holloway for the 3rd time. Honestly, I'm over it. I'm over it. And the first 2 fights were fun. And this fight will be fun. It will be entertaining. But I am over it. And you know what the worst thing that could happen here is freaking Max Holloway wins. And what are we going to do? Get a 4th one? I'm over it. Move on. Bring in Henry Cejudo's chubby little ass. I want to see him fight Volkanovski. Anyway, I think Volkanovski wins this fight. The first 2 fights, a lot of people scored the second one for Max. The reason I don't score the second one for Max is, look at this, 3 takedowns. And if we look at the striking numbers, when we go to Max, look, 139, 157. Let's go to Max. 111, 135. So he was outstruck in both of those fights. There was damage done to Max in both of those fights. And in the second fight, Volkanovski worked in takedowns. I literally think it's more of the same. The only question here is actually Max's wrestling, because look at this fight against Yair Rodriguez. He worked in 3 takedowns. He's never done that. Look at this. I'm scrolling. The last takedown was against Ortega in 2018. Before that, he had 2 against Pettis, but he's never had that many takedowns in a single fight. He has like 5 takedowns in his entire UFC career, and then he gets 3 against Yair Rodriguez. But you know why he went for those takedowns? Because he was getting lit up on his feet. That is the most amount of damage I've ever seen Max Holloway take. He was getting lit up by Yair Rodriguez. It was insane. So I think Volkanovski wins. I think these wars are starting to catch up to Max Holloway. And $9,000 is honestly a pretty fair price for a guy that's won this exact fight twice already and looks better each outing, where Max, I feel like, is looking a little worse each outing. Still talented, still a phenomenal striker. And if you want Max, listen, at the end of the day, $7,200 for a 5-round guy. I mean, what did he score in the losses last time? 43 and 54. Yeah, it's not great. But we'll see. If Max works in some wrestling, he may catch Volkanovski by surprise. We'll see what happens. Then we have the main event. We got Jared Cannonier taking on Israel Adesanya. Striker versus striker for the most part. We've seen Izzy lose just the one time against Jan Blachowicz because he was taken down. But the problem is Jared Cannonier doesn't really work in takedowns. Okay, 1 against Derek Brunson. Cool. 1 against Rohrik back in 2017. Dude has 2 takedowns in 7 years. So I can't expect him to go out there and all of a sudden just start taking down Israel Adesanya. And without the threat of the takedown, his strikes are going to be very obvious. Jared Cannonier has insane power, but his strikes are going to be obvious. Adesanya's going to see them coming, and Adesanya's, I think, just going to light him up. Old school Anderson Silva, stick and move, slick, head movement, bang, send back. So I think Adesanya's going to win this fight because of the accuracy, because he's the more dynamic striker, and because although Jared Cannonier has insane power, he doesn't have anything to set it up. There's no faking a takedown. Without faking a takedown, how are you going to come to the top? Robert Whittaker has had the success. I think Robert Whittaker won this last fight, by the way. But with that being said, Robert Whittaker has had success, even though they're losses, because he threatens takedowns. Marvin Vettori threatens takedowns. Jan Blachowicz got takedowns. And these people, the toughest fight Israel Adesanya has ever had was Gastelum. But same thing. Nobody has had any luck with Israel Adesanya without the threat of a takedown. So I imagine Jared Cannonier is probably going to try a takedown or two because his coaches are telling him, look how Jan beat him. But I don't think I don't think they're going to be solid attempts. I don't think they're going to be well enough to actually threaten. And I think Israel Adesanya touches up Jared Cannonier. But Jared's got insane power. The guy used to be a heavyweight. He is now a middleweight. We'll see what happens if he actually touches Izzy, because we've never seen Izzy in real power trouble inside the UFC. Guys, let me know your thoughts. Hopefully they get Misha a replacement opponent. I would like to see that. She's coming off the big brother win. Anyway, let me know in the comments what you guys think. Join our free Discord. Join. Share your thoughts. Share your lineups. Talk with the community. The links are all in the description.